My guest today is a dancer, performer, and new dad from Australia who got his big break on Australia's Got Talent, became a pop star, and now is perhaps best known as the Purple Wiggle. I'm pregnancy-focused chiropractor Dr. Elliot Berlin, and you're listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. John Pearce, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. This is great. I'm very excited to chat all things pregnancy in my life.
I bet that has consumed quite a bit of your life over the recent times. But let's start at the beginning. You're from Sydney originally.
Yeah, so I was born in Sydney, Australia. I am an identical twin, so growing up was very interesting, but I guess I had a different life to most people. Growing up to learn to share everything and having someone that looks identical to you. So great time growing up in Sydney.
Who's older?
Apparently, I'm older. Look, my mum's detail is a bit questionable. When I ask her, it's always different, but I'm apparently 30 minutes older. That's all I've known is I'm 30 minutes older than my brother.
Okay, so you have rank, seniority.
Yeah, apparently. But you know what? He does say that he was developed first for some reason, so I don't know how he knows that, but he says
Yeah, how
he's
does he know that? That's even
biologically older.
fuzzier. We have twins where the one who came out first is actually younger than the one who came out second.
Oh, why is that?
It happened soon after midnight, and the first baby came out, and
Yep.
then we changed the clock back an hour, and the second baby came out. So on paper, the one who came out
Is that
second
real?
is,
That actually
yeah,
happened.
that actually happened. It probably happens, once in a while.
Incredible. That's so confusing. Yeah, what a story.
Did you love being a twin, hate it, or both?
I had a great time growing up. I guess I've always had a best friend there, and like most brothers and twins, you fight all the time. But I guess I had that friendly competition, and he was my best man at my wedding, so we've been best friends ever
Oh,
since. So going to school, people like kids would fight over who got to play with the twins and things like that. So I guess we had a great time growing up, and I don't know otherwise. I wouldn't be able to compare it to not being a twin, so I wouldn't
do you
really
have
know.
other siblings?
Yep, I've got a younger brother, a younger sister, and four older half brothers.
Oh, wow, it's a nice sized clan.
Yeah, it's quite extended, but the main family we grew up around the same age was me and my twin brother and my younger brother and younger sister.
Younger sister. Nice. Okay, so how'd you get into dance?
By accident, I think growing up, I never really wanted to dance. My older brother, who was full Filipino descent, which was on my mum's side, used to make me and my twin brother learn his dance routines at home. So he'd be obsessed with writing rap songs and learning dance and would get us to teach us to learn the dance. And we kind of were introduced to it when we were about maybe 11 years old. We didn't really like it until about 2005. We were about 15 years old when we watched a movie called You Got Served, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that movie. It's heavily involved with breakdancing and hip hop and pop and lock and stuff like that. We fell in love with that movie and wanted to learn every dance move from that movie. So we copied everything and taught our friends at school. Yeah, that's how we got into the dance.
How did you make a career out of it?
Another accident. I think I really believe in the power of the universe, and because we were so passionate and we enjoyed dancing, we didn't take it too seriously. We did it as a hobby during lunch times at school. So we did it with our mates, and then we took it to a dance competition outside of school because we thought we were that cool. And we met another dance group, which essentially formed Justice Crew, which we entered Australia's Got Talent with, and it all kind of happened organically. We didn't really think, we're going to break the internet or try to become dancers or backup dancers or musicians in the future. We just did something because we loved it and stuck to it. And I think it just, what, I'm wearing the purple skivvy today, touring, entertaining children. So
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like in my life also, sometimes a little sign pops up and just says, go this way, go this way. And it works out like probably I'm assuming when people asked you when you were a kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? You didn't say, I want to be the Purple Wiggle.
no, I've actually got a recording of myself in kindergarten, which is when I was 6 years old, saying I wanted to be a construction worker. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to build houses, and I'm far from that.
Yeah, you've taken a different direction. Dance is hard on the body. Did you have any injuries along the way?
No, there are a few injuries. I guess breakdancing and trying to learn flips in your backyard does come with its own risks. And I did break my hand once. That's about it. I'm pretty safe. When I broke my hand, I was trying to learn this 360. It's called a corkscrew in breakdancing world when you do a backflip, a running backflip, and you do a twist in the air. And because I'm learning off YouTube and trying to copy the moves, I didn't really understand the technique correctly and just threw my body and landed on my hand. And I learned really fast. You know,
Yeah,
your body can't remember.
that's the wrong way to do it.
That's why they call it breakdancing.
I guess so. Well, Australia's Got Talent. What was that like for you? Was that your first time on a bigger stage like that?
Yeah, 100%. It was totally new. Look, as Justice Crew, we used to busk in the streets of Sydney. We used to, get together and practice in Pitt Street Mall, which is, one of the main strips of shopping in Sydney. And we used to busk and make a few cents here. And that was a good experience. Essentially going from that and taking it onto a global platform like Australia's Got Talent, or not a global platform, just being on national TV was something different. And we didn't think we wanted to win the show. We just wanted to try something different because we had a routine. And then again, I feel like it's just an organic thing that happened, and we didn't prepare for the consequences of winning the show. It just happened again, and I just finished school. I was 19 years old. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but we did love dance. We did love performing. So that's just something that just happened, and we were stuck with it, and we became pop stars overnight, literally.
Wow. I don't know if it's better, the acts that are like solo acts or the acts that are a group, if it's more comforting to have other people in your group or if, you have to worry about more people than just yourself.
Yeah, I think it kind of kept us grounded, having a group of guys around and just having your mates there kind of keeps you keeps you with it. I feel like if you're on your own, you don't know, people are talking in your ear and you've got no one to kind of enjoy that journey with. Like I wouldn't really know. I've never done it by myself. I've always been in a group and I've loved it every single part of the way. And it's been fun, especially having my twin brother involved in that process too. So it's always having that person to share it with. And I think that's the most important thing.
It sounds really cool. What was the aftermath like after Australia's Got Talent?
Look, I just finished school, didn't know what I wanted to do. We won $250,000 and split it between nine of us. So just finishing school and we all had a big chunk of money to go, hey, what do we buy? Shoes and cars. That's kind of what we wanted to do. We didn't really have a plan afterwards. We didn't know what that would look like, winning as a breakdancing group, a TV show, and people telling us, you're going to go on tour and you're going to travel and do all these things. And I was still working at a supermarket called Aldi. It's equivalent to Woolworths or Coles here. And I actually resigned 2 weeks before we won the show, but I still had 2 weeks to, finish up my duties there. And after winning the show, did a few shifts at the till and people were asking for my autograph while I was scanning their groceries.
Oh, it's really cool that you kept your word on the 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Don't you got to keep that. In my mind, we told the managers we'll be back in a year, and I'm pretty sure that job's still waiting for us. 15 years later.
Did that turn into touring with dance?
Yeah, look, we won as a breakdancing group. So initially, we recorded a documentary with Sony Music, and because our background in writing music and singing and rapping and things like that was quite foreign to us, we only danced to our music. The opportunity to record our own songs came up through Sony Music, and they asked us, if we'd be open to doing that and getting into the studio with a few writers and things like that, and making a video clip and being able to tour those songs. So essentially, we had nothing to really tour other than just dance. So we went from being a breakdancing group that used to busk in the streets of Sydney to recording our first single with Sony Music and became recording artists. And we kind of learned, the tricks of the trade and how to write music and all that sort of stuff. And it gave us a foundation to tour from. And we ended up, taking it on the road and touring and performing, on different stages around Australia and the US. It kind of opened up another opportunity and another avenue for Justice Crew.
Yeah. I mean, would she like better, song or dance?
Look, dancing's always fun, but now I'm getting a bit older. Like I'm only 35, but I feel like I'm becoming more efficient, and dancing feels like such an effort.
Yeah. Okay.
Becoming more efficient.
I mean, look, I just eat pizza and that feels like an effort, but
Yeah, that's
I'm
enough. That's all you need.
all
Perfect.
right. I'm excited to learn how your career then kind of folded into the Wiggles and also your new full-time job, fatherhood. Let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll learn more. Welcome back. We're talking to John Pearce. Okay, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. So, yeah,
Oi, oi, oi.
yeah, thank you. You were born, 30 minutes later, a carbon copy of you comes out,
Yep.
allegedly, and you grew up with best friends and fighting in between being best friends. And Get into dance, YouTube video, break dance,
Mhm.
get together with another crew, break dance more, end up on
Mhm.
Australia's Got Talent and make enough money to buy a lot of shoes and stuff like that. But then it turns into a singing career and traveling around. And now the Wiggles. How did that transformation happen?
Yeah, I think, being in Justice Crew, we got to perform at some amazing events around Australia. We have different concerts. We've got the Carols and Domain, which is like a, Jingle Bell Ball, like things like that, where all the main acts around Australia perform. And during my time in Justice Crew, I got to meet the Wiggles. And, growing up watching the Wiggles, I was always big fans. We were all big fans of the Wiggles. And, I kind of connected with a few of the guys here and there throughout time. And 9 years later, Justice Crew, everyone grew up and kind of took different paths and different passions. And, you know, in a group, it's hard to kind of stick together for long term if everyone's got different visions and different ways they want to like take our music and things like that. So there was a time just before COVID-19 kind of struck and the music industry was really halted and everyone had to kind of decide, we couldn't tour, we couldn't do too much. We had to find other means of making a living. And that was a good turning point for me. I became a personal trainer, something that I can control. I started nutrition. And I actually bumped into Anthony, the Blue Wiggle, the founder of the Wiggles, who lived down the street from me. So he lived in the same neighborhood. And because in Australia, in Sydney especially, you couldn't leave your neighborhood in COVID, you were locked down to your neighborhood, and that was it. So I bumped into Anthony quite a lot during that period. And
Mhm.
we got to chatting and he was telling me about, the touring industry, how it was affected and all that sort of stuff. And, what are we up to and all that. And he actually invited me shortly after to, once we were able to return to work, to go check out Wiggles HQ and come and have a look. And we worked on a project which didn't involve the Wiggles, but the Wiggles kind of were looking after. And it was a TV show that, I could feature on and I was a mime. I was a pantomime. And it was a fun little thing. And I thought, I didn't really think much of it. It was just something, I just give it a go. And this is Anthony, my childhood hero, that's just, asking me to try this. And he told me then, there's a big future in this industry for you. And I thought to myself, I wonder what he meant by that. I went home, told my wife, he said this, and it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. It was a really good team there. And, and a few months later, it kind of went a bit quiet after that. The Wiggles went back on tour and I went back to my personal training out of my home garage gym. And, Anthony would message me here and there saying, hey, good news on that show we filmed. Like we're taking it, we're going to try to turn it into like a series. And I said, okay, cool, this is exciting. Okay. And then another few months went quiet. And then all of a sudden, say Anthony messages me, hey, let's catch up for a coffee. Awesome. Well, down the road, I'll come up. Let's chat. And then he presents me with a slideshow of, the history of the Wiggles and what it means to wear the skivvy and all this sort of stuff. And then I started thinking at that point, is he going to ask me to join the Wiggles? Like, where's this going? It was in a nutshell. At the bottom of this slideshow, we went through, who wore the skivvy. Jeff was in the Wake Up. Jeff was the purple skivvy, and this is what it means, and this is what it represents. And at the bottom of this slideshow was four new faces, and I was one of those faces. And the
Oh,
Wiggles were
wow.
going to expand and become 8 members and have two of every color and include, more diversity and gender equality. And I was going to be part of that. So he asked if I would do it. And initially, I was so excited deep down. I don't show much emotion. I just kind of play it cool and I go, yeah, cool. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, why not? Of course. I'd love to. And, I just went home and called my wife and I said, I think Anthony just asked me to be the new Purple Wiggle. And it kind of didn't really hit me for a while, but yeah, it's been life-changing ever since. And I've loved every moment of this whole journey. And it's a privilege to be able to wear the skivvy, this iconic skivvy. So that's kind of
Uh,
how I ended up.
what a great story. How long have you been doing it?
It's been about 4 years now, so it's come up to 4 years.
So
2021 is when I first came into record, and yeah, 2025 now and counting.
your world is full of purple.
Exactly. It's my wardrobe is slowly getting more purple and purple, and I think it helps when the fashion industry includes purple lately. So
Yeah,
purple's in fashion apparently.
good timing. Maybe you set a trend. You mentioned your wife a couple of times. How did you guys meet?
I met my wife in high school, so we've been together for over 13 years and married for 6. And she's been my best friend ever since. And we started dating shortly after high school. I knew her from high school, but we met early days, and yeah, it feels like I've known her for a long time now. But every day feels like it's our first day, really.
Were you people that discussed like, oh, we're gonna have a family one day?
Like I'm pretty spontaneous. Maybe the first week we met and hung out, I was always kind of joking, like let's just have a baby, let's just do this as a joke. No, I wasn't really taking it serious. I'm a bit spontaneous. I don't think too much of consequences. I just, go with it. If I really love somebody, I really like somebody, I'm all there straight away. And we were young, we were 20 years old. So a bit of a ridiculous thing to do. And some people do, and she's totally fine. But at the time, Jess is still young and we're still working, trying to figure our lives out. And luckily we did put it off, but when we did start trying, it was a lot more complicated than we thought. So yeah, but we did speak about it early days, and once we got married and moved in together and bought our first place, and I think the foundations were correct, and the time was right.
Yeah. It sounds like it took you by surprise that it wasn't just one plus one equals two to make the baby.
I know.
What was the journey like for you guys?
It was confusing. At the start, you think it's so easy. You just try. You'll just do it, and you'll fall pregnant straight away. You'll walk past somebody in the street, or you got to be careful dancing next to somebody, you get them pregnant. But
That's what they tell you.
anyway, yeah. It is, and that can happen too. But our journey was a little bit more complex. It's not as complicated, and I'm sure it's more common than not. We started trying a few years ago. 3.5 years ago was the first time we were actively like checking ovulation, and we tried to line it up with the menstrual cycle and the ovulation window, and it didn't happen the first time. And we're like, all right, okay. We tried again the next month, and we tried again the next month, and you just kind of keep trying here and then. It took about a year of kind of doing that until we kind of started asking the question, or maybe we should get some professional help or get some fertility advice. I'm going to speak to somebody and see what's going on. Jessie always knew she had extended periods, so she got high levels of testosterone. So she used to control that with the pill when she was younger and things like that. And she had PCOS, so she found out she had polycystic ovarian syndrome, which can, ultimately, affect your ovulation and fertility, and it can make conceiving a little bit more difficult. And we knew that it was still possible to fall pregnant, but we just kept trying. And then I checked myself, maybe it's me. I was okay, everything looked okay, and every time we went and got checked, everything was fine. So I think that was the hardest part, was being
It's
told that
frustrating.
you just got to keep doing it. So,
Yeah. I think you always want them to be like, oh, this is the problem. Here's the solution.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes when you want to hear an answer, it's just as bad to hear they don't know or it's fine. You just got to keep trying. There's only 30% chance of falling pregnant in the best case scenario or something like that. And then we kind of had that hope for
Unexplained.
a while. Yeah.
Unexplained infertility is hard.
Yeah, and it's a bit frustrating and it's upsetting at times, but we persevered and just, stuck with each other and just, kept going through it and just kept trying and just was staying positive and trying to fix our health and better everything else in our lives. But the time came when we conceived Henry. So I guess that was, long story short,
Yeah.
being
Wait,
a few
so you
challenges.
ended up holding off on doing any kind of interventions?
Yeah, so we spoke to a fertility doctor. We did a few checks and everything looked okay. So we continued for another year and then we went back and said, you know what we're doing is something's not right, something's not happening. Are there any other alternatives, before we head to IVF or things like that? Because we really want to have a child now. We don't want to, every day it's getting longer and longer. And we really want to capitalize on, the momentum now and we're young and we want to be young as possible with our babies. But they mentioned letrozole was a tablet that you can take, which can induce ovulation, which is, it's an oral tablet you take. And we just did ovulation tracking with blood tests. So, they said on the next period, you take this tablet on the second day of your period and for 5 days straight, and we'll come in and do a blood test every 2 to 3 days to see what your hormones are doing. And they told us by text message when to try, when to actively try. And that was the first time we fell pregnant. So we did that, took
Oh,
that tablet. It was that first try, the first cycle of it, and literally that first time we fell pregnant. So that was, yeah. When we heard that message, we
hmm.
thought, how quick, because Jess's cycles are normally 6 to 7 weeks, as opposed to 28 days. So
Oh,
we were so
wow.
used to waiting so long to try again. We would be waiting 5 weeks till the next cycle, and then 2 weeks plus. And this time was literally like 10 days, and they said, from your last period, try now, try today, and come back for a pregnancy test next week. I thought, is it that quick? Something must not be right. But, thank God for letrozole and the help from the fertility clinic there. It kind of just gave her that extra boost and helped
Little
that egg
medical
come out.
technology boost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Must have been a big relief finding out, like a happy surprise that it
Yeah,
worked.
100%. Yeah. And I think we've been documenting this whole thing because we wanted to get our reactions when we found out we were pregnant each time. So I was kind of filming each time we checked, the
Oh,
pregnancy
wow.
stick at home. And it's nice now to look back and you had this journey that you didn't think you were going to kind of be able to put it all into one video. But each time was, a failure, another failure, another failure. And this time, I was filming in the car. Jess waited to pick me up from work because the doctor was calling her during the day to give her the results from, the pregnancy test. And she waited to pick me up so we'd hear it together. And I've posted a video online that you can see, our actual genuine responses. And that was the first time we heard it.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to check it out. What was the pregnancy like?
Pregnancy was really good. Jess didn't get too sick. She was okay. She didn't get much morning sickness. Everything was as we've been reading up on it because we've been trying for a long time. We looked up every single detail and what it'd be like to be pregnant and all that stuff. So all those things, Jess was okay. She had energy. She's a bit tired. She had high risk of preeclampsia. Her mum had preeclampsia, were diagnosed with preeclampsia, and she was a preterm baby, so she was already at kind of high risk, and there was a marker early days that she also could be at risk. So she was taking aspirin to kind of help, alleviate that through the journey. Other than that, everything was good, healthy scans. Baby was tracking pretty big. He was about a week in front each time. Big baby. We were worried it's not going to come out of my tiny wife.
Were you traveling like for work during the pregnancy?
Yeah, not too much. Look, I've read stories about people missing the birth of their babies, and that was something that I didn't want to miss out on. And we were due for a tour when baby was due. So baby was due December, and we were on tour November and December all around
Oh, you're
Australia.
kidding.
So I'm already thinking this is in June. Oh my gosh, okay. So we've got an important tour, I'm one of the Wiggles, I've got to be on stage. How am I going to kind of navigate and kind of navigate this and not risk missing, the birth of my baby, my firstborn, and just having that risk of preeclampsia too, and having that risk of also coming early if something was to go wrong, and I didn't want to be away somewhere where I had to rush home. So there was a few days shows that I missed, and thank God for a good team here. They're all really supportive, and they allowed me to kind of miss these last few shows, especially in the last few weeks of pregnancy, from 36 weeks onwards, just to be there and also to help my wife when she's that big and struggling to get out of the bed and just to go for walks and things like that. So
Yeah.
very great.
Did they do anything specific to care for her preeclampsia or to try to prevent it?
Yeah, we had a good obstetrician. We were going for checks every 2 weeks and taking that aspirin just kept her blood pressure low. And I think they were just staying on top of that and any rise or anything like that, they will kind of intervene early. But it stayed pretty well. It was good the whole time. So she stopped taking aspirin from 36 weeks and her blood pressure kind of stayed the same until birth, which we went full term. So it was okay. So everything was
Oh, that's
fine.
awesome. Yeah, there's a brand new test for testing for markers for preeclampsia, and
Oh,
it
wow.
seems to be pretty accurate that you can find out early in the pregnancy if you're going to have a significant risk. So people who are already high risk for it don't really need the test because they already know, but just random people can
Oh,
find out
wow.
and be prepared. Well, let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll find out how your birth went. Don't go
Awesome.
anywhere. Welcome back. We are talking to John Pearce. I closed my eyes for 1 second, and all I can see is purple. I think it's not just the outfit. Like you're starting to exude purple in your energy.
Can you see it?
Yeah, there it
Super.
is. The Wiggles. Okay, so here's my question for you. Like in my mind, I'm like, what happens when a wiggle is missing during a show? Is there an understudy, or they just
No, I think now because there are eight wiggles, there's two of every color. Each color is represented if one's missing. So some shows we can get away with that and it's okay. And especially, that they make an announcement in the early shows, parents understand that, I'm there for my wife and waiting for my baby to be born and no one really complains or says anything, which is, yeah, thank God for a good good
yeah,
understanding audience. And yeah,
right?
it's great. We can jump straight back on stage and children see the colors and the music is all there and you've got seven other wiggles to keep you entertained.
Yeah, it's actually three more wiggles than they used to get. So how could we
Yeah,
complain?
you're getting extra.
All right, birth. So did you guys have a plan? I know you said you're spontaneous, but
Yeah.
did you have a plan for or a vision for how you wanted the birth to go?
Like we wanted to go natural. So we wanted to, as natural as possible. Jess really wanted to experience labor and really pushing the baby out and all that. I don't know if she was a bit naive. Once we got there, we did a stretch and sweep a day before because we passed our due date and we thought, you can do a little stretch and sweep and just try to, well, is that what
Encourage.
you call it? Stretch and sweep? Yeah, encourage a bit of the water to break. And
Yeah,
we
we
want to
call it
experience the
a
water
membrane
breaking.
sweep here.
Yeah, membrane sweep. Yeah. We wanted to experience the water breaking at home and rushing like in the movies. I think that day before baby was due, well, we just passed the due date actually, and I had a show in Sydney and Jess came with me. So I actually performed in a Sydney show, knowing the hospital's 10 minutes up the road and my wife is right next to me. I still performed at the Wiggles show. And Jess actually got up on stage because Anthony, the Blue Wiggle, dictates the show and he's more spontaneous than I am. He decides to bring Jess up, which is 40 weeks pregnant, and we sang Baby Shark together on in cutest.
Uh,
There's a video of this too. And I was just thinking how ironic, how funny would this be if a water broke on stage and we rushed off to hospital? It didn't. It didn't.
that would have been
Yeah.
ultimate.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was a fun story, but there's a fun footage there. And the next that afternoon, we literally went straight to hospital. Yeah, so water didn't break. We went there to get induced, so we stayed overnight. The membrane suite didn't do too much. She lost the mucus plug at home, which we thought, yes, this is a first stage of labor coming. We stayed the night in the birthing suite. The next morning, and I was in there with her, so they brought a bed out for the husband, which is great. I didn't have to sleep on the couch. So
nice.
next morning, 7 a.m. We're sleeping in. We're thinking this is the holiday. We're like, how exciting. We're going to meet our baby tomorrow. She's in her bed. I'm in her bed. 7 in the morning, obstetrician walks in with four midwives. Lights come on and they go, all right, we're going to break your water. And we're still sleeping. We
Oh,
kind of woke
wow.
up like, this is going to happen right now. She said, yeah, she goes, I haven't eaten. I haven't gone to the toilet. I got to go do this stuff. But yeah, they came in and broke the water and they said, you can still do what you have to do, go to the bathroom. Water will start to come out. So that was a pretty interesting process. I stood there and I watched him break the water. And, once you see all this liquid start coming out, you start thinking, this is for real. This is all happening. This is starting now. And it was all pretty smooth sailing at that point. Just started feeling a bit of contractions. She went to the bathroom. We were just kind of walking around the hospital ward just to kind of keep moving. And she started getting, I don't know if that brought on the early stages of labor. It started cramping. It started getting those contractions still quite far apart. And we thought at this point, what Jess did, she said, this is fine. I'm still walking around like I'm in labor. Like, this is great. This is all good. Yeah, and it didn't take long until she was sitting down the bed and she couldn't get back up off the bed, thinking, it's getting a lot worse. And, they check the cervix and they say, oh, you're 3 centimeters dilated. And this is after 3 hours of those contractions.
Mm.
So,
Only
we'll,
seven to go.
yeah, I know. And we needed to get to 10. So, it's another 4 hours would go by and it's getting pretty bad. She's on the gas and she can't,
Oh,
she's
you guys
bedridden at
do
this point.
nitrous oxide?
Yeah, so she's, just every time it gets bad, just suck on this. It teaches you to breathe. So she's got that. Didn't really do too much. And she was getting really bad. And as an observer and a husband just standing there, I can kind of see that she's really in pain. And she said she wanted to go through this. So I'm just going to, respect that. And I'm just going to kind of intervene if I need to. They'd come in a few hours later and check the cervix, and it was only 3.5 centimeters dilated. And this
Oh
has
boy,
been
that's
and they
mentally
said,
hard.
it's a bit slow to progress and it hasn't really hit active labor. And that's when it gets really bad. So we're thinking, oh my gosh, I can see that Jess is really finding it's difficult. And I actually said to her, do you need the epidural? Because it takes a while to get once you request it. And I said to her, just get the epidural. There's no point of pushing yourself through this. And I can say that, this is tough and most people get through it. My mum got through pregnancy without epidural, but we're not in that age anymore. So, yeah, so we got the epidural. That was good. You know what? I didn't realize how graphic the epidural is.
The placement?
Yeah, just getting it in. I just, you think that like she's going through contractions, she's got to sit up. I'm holding her legs in my lap and they're putting, that into I'm not looking at the spine, but I can see the glove over the doctor's shoulder as he's trying to straighten her back. And it's just like, there's blood on the hands. And I'm just like, what are they doing back there? Pretty intense. You got to be careful, right, in getting that epidural into the spine. But
Just the
it's
right spot.
after that kicked in, she was totally fine. She could fall asleep. She was relaxing, and you could still see the contractions on the screen. And it was progressing. And, this was another 5 hours would go by, and they said, you've only dilated to 4 centimeters. So it failed to progress. And Jess, she started getting a bit of a fever at this point. So we started getting a bit worried. The doctors come in, the OB came in and said, we're not sure if there's an infection. Baby's healthy, heart rate's great, blood pressure's fine. We're not sure what's happening. So that's when they recommended getting an emergency Caesar. And this was about, 7:30 at night time after about 12 hours of labor. Just so opt for emergency Caesar just to be sure. And we're at the point where I'm exhausted. Jess, who knows what she's feeling. And she made the call and she said, let's just get him out. Let's just play the safest part. We don't want to push through something that we're not really sure. The experts are recommending to take him out now and let's just do that. So we went down and baby was born in like 30 minutes.
Uh, yeah, what was that like for the two of you together?
just going into the surgery room for the cesarean. You know what? I get a bit clammy with blood tests. So when I
Ah,
get a blood test, I'm one of those guys I have to lie down and, I feel a bit funny and it takes me a while. So being in that real clean, sterile environment, I was worried that I was going to pass out or I was going to feel sick or, and I'm
mhm.
thinking, out of everyone here, why would I feel so? I'm the healthiest here. I'm Jess has got these wires hanging out of her. She did 12 hours of labor. She hasn't eaten. She hasn't done anything. And I just have to like, just push through this. But it was a really beautiful experience. And just being able to sit there, the anesthetist was really nice. It was really caring and reassuring. And our OB was there. And, all the midwives are so nice. They grab your phone and they can take photos and film for you while you're just there and just focusing. I just want to be there for Jess. I want to make sure she was healthy and she was feeling okay. And, the first moment they pulled the baby out and I'm just watching. I think it felt a bit like a dream. I'm just watching when they pull the screen down and you can kind of look over and you see the baby kind of getting pulled out, just covered in blood and they're connected by the umbilical cord and then they look like an alien and his head was a bit cone shaped because he tried to obviously come out and he got stuck. And it just felt like a dream when they pulled him out and you could just hear the cry for the first time. So it's such a memorable experience and we're glad we've got a video footage of this whole thing.
That's
And
incredible. It's always amazing, but I think even more so when you have to work for the pregnancy, when you put so much into it emotionally and physically. And that's a roller coaster. It's a tough roller coaster to go on either by yourself or with a partner. It can really be straining on the relationship and straining on your faith. And then all of a sudden, here you are, and there's a baby, a bloody little baby.
a bloody baby and they cut the umbilical cord and parenthood starts.
Yeah. Oh,
It's exciting.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
How has fatherhood been for you?
It's been really good, from a dad's perspective. Like most new dads, it's confusing as well. I was surprised at the beginning, the first 2 weeks, I was running off minimal sleep. It's probably the adrenaline, the excitement that you think, I don't get sleep deprived. This is not as bad as I imagined. Or, we're sleeping in chunks of hours or 2 hours, and you might only get 2, 3 hours of good sleep a night. I felt okay, and I think it was a few weeks after when it kind of catches up when it kind of repetitive every day is the same, and you're chasing after your sleep. But we're embracing it, and this is something we've always wanted. And we've got such a beautiful boy, and we're both there for him. And I'm helping Jess as much as she's helping me, and we're both new to this, and it's been such a wild experience. And wouldn't change it for the world. But changing nappies and burping the babies on a daily is just part of my life now, and I love it.
How old is he now?
He's nearly 4 months, so he'll be 4 months next week.
Oh,
So he's
wow.
going through 4 months sleep regression. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's going fast or slow?
Oh, it's going super fast. I think even the days go super fast when you're waiting just to settle in for an hour. And then the next, you realize it's already lunchtime and it's dinner time. And then it's the next day. And then I'm back at work. And then, he's 4 months now. I just remember the birth yesterday and he's 4 months old. And by the end of this year, he'd be walking.
Goes
It's gonna,
really
it's,
fast. I remember holding my little guy in my hand like he's a football, just one hand. Now he's turning 21.
oh, wow.
So,
It's
and it was
fast.
like a blink, it happened so
Yeah.
fast. Sometimes you just want to slow it down, but you can't. So,
Yeah, and that's what I would tell Jess too, just to, live in the moment. If it's contact napping, just really just embrace that moment because that won't be there much longer. And you'll look back and you'll just remember this is just, you want to go back to this stage.
yeah, absolutely. You guys are getting ready to go on tour again. How does that work with the wife and kid?
Well, my wife and kid are gonna come on the road as well, so they're gonna be living the rock star lifestyle. So they're gonna tag along to the UK and the US, Canada. It'll be great. He'll be 5 months, 5, 6, 7 months. He'll age 2 months on the trip, and he'll come back and he'll be crawling. So that's something that I didn't want
Wow.
to miss out on. Leaving my family for a few months. Of course, they're not going to remember any of the trip at all. But for us, it's just those memories that me and my wife create with our son and being able to experience all this together as a family.
Yeah, it sounds
Um,
like you document things really well, so that memory will be there for him too.
Yeah, 100%. And we always look back on it and his passport will have more stamps than I ever did until I turned 18.
Does he have a lot of purple clothing?
He gets sent a lot of purple things. I don't know if he'll like purple. Let's hope he likes the Wiggles.
I know he'll love one wiggle.
Oh, that's for sure. Dorothy the dinosaur. She loves Dorothy the dinosaur.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. What a great story. And, especially when you have a difficult time conceiving and work all the way through, it's just when you have that triumphant moment and you get to hold your baby for the first time, it's just so, so
Yeah.
powerful. It's really cool that you documented everything. Where can people go find you online and see some of these cool videos?
It's on my social media. So John Pearce is my Instagram and TikTok as well. So John Adama Pearce, it's all linked together. Check out the Wiggles too. It's all kind of, if you can't find my name, go through the Wiggles and you can find it through there. We try to document everything there. It just lives on and you look back, you don't realize how fast they grow and you just take photos every day.
Absolutely going to go check it out. Some of those videos sound incredible. John, thank you so much for joining me. And who knows, maybe we'll spot you while you're moving through the US.
Yeah, awesome. That'd be great. Thanks, Elliot. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. At home, thanks for listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. For more pregnancy and parenting information just like this, visit us online at informedpregnancy.com.